let's take a look at the schedule, see how it's going to fall, just picking every single game. So let's go from worst to first here. So let's start with the Cincinnati Bengals. Hit me with their games.
Okay, so Bengals, they start their season with our beloved New England Patriots in Cincinnati.
In Cincinnati, Cincinnati Bengals typically not great in the first 2 months of the season. However, I think the New England Patriots have a lot to figure out. New head coach, new quarterbacks on that team. Don't really have an offense yet. So I think the Bengals defense can win it on their own. So I will go the Bengals in this game.
So they start off 1-0, but unluckily for them, week 2, they have to go to Arrowhead to face the two-time defending champion Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, two-time defending champion Kansas City Chiefs. I am going to pick them to lose that game, even though they fared pretty well against the Kansas City Chiefs. The Bengals just really aren't that impressive in September, and it seems like they're asleep at the wheel in the first month of the season. So for that reason, I'm going to have them going 1-1 here versus the Kansas City Chiefs.
Okay. Well, lucky for them, they'll have 8 days to prepare for their next matchup. On Monday Night Football, they'll be they'll be at home to be facing off against the number 2 overall pick, Jaden Daniels, and the Washington Commanders.
Ooh, yeah, that's a tough matchup for them. However, I will pick the Bengals to win that game. Coming off a tough loss versus the Kansas City Chiefs, Joe Burrow does show up in prime time. Commanders also have a lot to figure out there as well, so I will go with the Bengals in that game, have them go to 2-1.
Okay. Well, then the very next week are going to have to trek all the way down to Tepperville to take on the Carolina Panthers 1 o'clock game on Sunday. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, you better win that game, or you're not making the playoffs if you lose to the Panthers.
Yeah,
Sorry.
you can't lose to the Panthers. So at that point, they're 3-1. They have pretty easy start to the season. And then they go on Sunday, the very next week, at home to face the Ravens.
The Ravens, I think they'll split with the Ravens, and I'll pick them to lose that game.
Okay.
Started out pretty easy in September, however, still finding your footing, so I'll have them going 3-2 and lose to the Ravens.
Very fair. Well, then at this point, by this point it's week 6. They go to East Rutherford for Sunday Night Football to take on Bobby.
Okereke.
Sorry, let's try that again. Bobby Okereke and the Giants on Sunday Night Football. They will be away for Sunday Night Football. Thoughts?
Yeah, if Joe Burrow loses to Walt Jr. and the Giants, I will burn my jersey. So
Oof, that's tough.
4-2.
So they're 4-2, and then the very next week they go Sunday. They go and face the Browns. Browns have given them trouble in the past. Thoughts here?
Yeah, I'll have them going 4-3 versus the Browns. You're coming off I believe that was Monday Night Football versus the Giants there. Short week. Cleveland Browns have kind of been the Bengals killer for Joe Burrow over the past few years, so I will have them losing to the Cleveland Browns.
All right, and then 4 o'clock game the following week at home against the Eagles.
At home against the Eagles, I think they're finding their footing by now. At home in Cincinnati, primetime, I will go with the Bengals to beat the Philadelphia Eagles. Nick Sirianni, they asked him what he does here. He said, I'm not sure. Zach Taylor at least has a job as a head coach.
That is very true. So at that point, they're what? 5-3?
Yep.
5-3. Okay, well, the next stretch can be a little tough. They go in at home to host the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, I definitely think they beat the Raiders at home. I think the Raiders story is going to be good. I think they're going to be a gritty team next year. However, don't think they're going to be on the same level as the Bengals as far as quarterback play. I will take the Bengals at home to go 6-3.
All right, and then they have a short week there. Thursday Night Football the following week in Baltimore to take on the Ravens.
Yeah, so I picked them to split with the Ravens, so I have them winning that game versus Baltimore, move to 7-3.
All right, and then the next week with some extended time, they face the Chargers in LA.
Yeah, Bengals definitely winning that game versus the Chargers. I'm not sure what the Chargers are going to be next year, but I don't think it's going to be great as a team, so I will go with Joe Burrow winning in LA.
All right. And then the next week they have a bye. Chances are they're going to win that game.
Maybe it's a tie.
Maybe it's a tie, potentially. After their week off, they are at home to host the Steelers.
At home to face the Steelers. I will take the Bengals to beat the Steelers in that game and move to 9-3.
All right. And then this will be a game that you'll appreciate. Monday Night Football in Jerry World.
Monday Night Football in Jerry World. Yeah. Problem with the Cowboys is Deuce Vaughn is their best running back there. And I will take the Cincinnati Bengals to go to Jerry World and win.
All right. So then, after winning some big games against some big opponents, they will be in Tennessee for an average 1 o'clock game against the Titans.
Yeah, so going through a bunch of weeks where they won a lot of tough games there. They're currently sitting at 10-3. For some reason, I just think that's a game where they're going to lose. And I think there's another loss in here, whether it be to the Titans or the Raiders. So I actually have them losing that game and go to 10-4.
All right. And then just a few days later, they host the Cleveland Browns, a team that has given them issues in the past, for Thursday Night Football on a short week.
Yeah, I think the Browns are pretty banged up by that point. Deshaun Watson's probably hurt again. It's probably Jameis Winston at quarterback. And we're into November at this point where the Bengals start to December at this point. So the Bengals are typically undefeated there. So I will take the Bengals to win and go to 11-4.
All right. And then they have to struggle on Sunday, a couple last legs of the season, week 17. They got to defeat, whether it be Zach Wilson, Bo Nix, or whoever else is quarterback at that time for the lowly Denver Broncos.
Yeah, that's a game where if you lose it at that point, you're not winning a Super Bowl or getting to the playoffs.
Absolutely not. And then by then, week 18, potentially they're resting starters. Who knows where they're at that point. Going to Pittsburgh for a game that probably means more for the Steelers in week 18.
Yeah, so I'll pick the Bengals to win that game in Pittsburgh there, whether it be Justin Fields or Russell Wilson. Steelers are going through a pretty brutal stretch at that point. They're going to be beat up. So I'll have the Bengals finishing at 13-4.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate. I think I'd probably have them around that 12-5, 13-4 range. But they're looking pretty good at that point.
Yeah, looking pretty good at that point. So Bengals right now we have at 13-4. Do you agree with that? Do you think they're a little lower, a little higher?
Yeah, I think 11-6 to 13-4 is the range that I would have. I have them probably around 12-5. I think they would lose that last week Steelers game. But otherwise, I think I agree with most of what you're saying.